live. Yeah, we going live. Hey, we going live. Yeah, we going live. Yeah, we going. Yeah, we going. Yeah, we going live. From the 50-yard line, we going live. From the 50-yard line, we going live. From the 50-yard line. Hey.
Hello, beautiful people.
Hello.
I am Jarrett, the football genius Burgess.
And I am Stephanie Fitzpatrick, a.k.a. the Advantage Coach.
This is episode 82 of the Fields of the Real podcast. They're climbing.
Listen.
They're climbing.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Man.
So cool. Cool. Listen, we've been diligent to this thing. I'm just excited.
Our countdown to 100.
Oh, my gosh. We haven't started playing it like we said either. We got to get on that.
We do.
Yeah.
We got about maybe 4.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's
boring. I don't know how big your idea of the event was, but mine was grand, so we might.
Oh, no. It's no. My idea is definitely grandiose.
Okay.
So, yeah, you're right. We need to start ASAP.
Yes, this is pretty much like planning a wedding. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
we're already behind the 8 ball.
Right. Yeah, we need to get to it because that 4.5 months will go by fast.
Listen, we already in the middle of the month. It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got to get on it for sure.
All right.
All right.
All right. Let's dive right in.
Yes.
Who's really right?
Yeah.
Now, we know that Sunday, LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA Finals. And after winning this Finals, all you heard again was, does this make LeBron James closer to Michael Jordan as being the GOAT? You guys already know how I feel. You already know how.
Can I just say this? I appreciate LeBron's response to all of this.
Yes. He
was very humble.
Right.
And was like, I wear that number for a reason. Y'all can have this debate, but he is the best.
Right.
Yeah.
I appreciated that too. You know, because, and I'm going to tell you why I appreciated it. Because I feel like he had a misstep on the shop. And, you know, it's supposed to be like barbershop talk.
Mm-hmm.
And while I felt that championship that he won against the Golden State Warriors, where he came back from being down 3-1, or the Cleveland Cavaliers came back.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, he had some teammates.
Yeah, okay. I know. And because we were specifically talking about him, I tried not to, like, isolate him because that was a whole team effort.
Yes, it was.
He didn't drag them to
there was no mop bucket at that time. Yeah.
Right. But I think that might have been the greatest championship win by a team ever.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nobody has ever come back down 3-1 in the finals.
Right.
So I say all that to say, on the shop, he made the statement, I felt like that made me the GOAT. Now, I felt that way too. And I felt like he shouldn't have said that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even if you felt that way,
yeah,
I felt like he shouldn't have said that, which put more scrutiny on him.
Absolutely.
So when we had our production meeting the other day, this kind of brought us to this question because it
was about Jimmy Butler.
It was about Jimmy Butler, and we were talking about legacy.
Yeah.
And we were talking about if this, the first question was, does this add to his legend?
Does this make him a legend?
Does this make him a legend?
This performance make him a legend, like literally. Yes.
Right. And both of us said no, so that couldn't be who's really right, because it can't just be one performance.
No.
And that kind of took us down this rabbit hole of,
40 minutes of rabbit hole.
Yeah, right. Because we were on the phone talk about who's really right. We were on the phone for over an hour, but who's really right took about 40 minutes of that conversation. Yeah. So one of the things we kind of dug us to was how much weight do we put on a finals loss?
Championships, yep.
But that then led us to, do we put too much of a premium on championships as they relate to a legacy? So since we finally got here,
go first.
I'm gonna say ladies first.
I was going. I'm passing the buck.
You want me to go first?
I want you to go first.
Okay. I do feel like when we're talking about legacy, I do feel like championships play too big a role. I think there are some great players who have come through the NBA, and I think that we, in a way, delegitimize them, if that's a word, because of championships. Yeah. And I feel like that conversation around championships and how they play a role in legacy is the reason why we start seeing super teams. Right? The first, I would say, super team was constructed by Danny Ainge. He traded for Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen.
Right.
He already had
Paul Pierce. Yeah.
And so as presently constructed, that was the first super team we saw. And you can make an argument that the Bulls was kind of a super team, but
they wasn't constructed. It just fell into place that way.
Right. Well,
but that goes back to my goat too.
Who was the owner? I mean, not the owner, but who was the GM?
Ooh, I don't know.
Jerry Krause was the GM?
I don't know.
Okay, so in the future, we're going to have a conversation about how he doesn't get enough
credit
for the construction of that team.
Put some respect on his name. That's right.
We'll say that for another day.
Okay.
But so to finish my point, I feel like I know I'll be walking all around the place. Championships, because the media has put so much pressure on superstars to win a championship, we get those super teams. So, like I said, Danny Ainge and the Celtics, that was a super team that was created by Danny Ainge's just savvy.
Right.
I don't know who would trade.
Right. It's the talent. He has a good eye for talent.
He has a knack for making deals that
people be looking like, wait, what?
How did he pull that off?
Yeah. Even when he got Kyrie, what?
Right.
Like what? Yeah.
Even when he made the decision to trade back with the Sixers and he got what's the kid's name? That's there now. Came out of Duke. Light skin.
Light skin.
Yeah.
Oh God. Now that you're asking, I can't think of his name. Is it Brown?
Oh, not Jaylen Brown. The other.
No, I know it's not Jaylen. They got a Brown on their team too, I thought. But okay. I don't know what the little light skinned kid's name is. I see his face.
I see his face too, and I can't think of his name. No. Jason Tatum.
Tatum. That's it. Tatum.
So, the Sixers traded some picks and everything in order to get Markelle Fultz. The Celtics traded back, received the capital, and got Jason Tatum.
Right.
And we can see who got the better of that deal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So then after that Celtics team, then LeBron and D-Wade and Bosh create the super team in Miami.
Right.
Then we see obviously Kevin Durant goes to,
I was gonna say the Warriors. Yeah.
Right.
And now again in the Nets. And now the Nets, when they get a chance again, that they've created a super team.
Well, so It depends. I don't know if I don't know if you could put DeAndre Jordan on the level of a Chris Bosh or a Kevin Garnett, right?
I like
So
DeAndre.
no, I do. So when he was with Lob City, I think maybe he was. I mean, he was a lot better then than he is now.
I think it's the play calling.
True. They may not have wanted to use him
right the way they did.
They needed to, in the way that
right.
he was.
They have not utilized his talent, in my opinion.
Okay, I'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
But because the media has put so much pressure on these superstars to win a championship, we arrived at it only matters to win a championship. Doesn't necessarily matter how much like what's done. Like KD winning the championship with the Warriors, right? You know, some people value that lower, but the fact is, like, he won a championship.
Yeah.
Like, we heard all of the stuff about, you know, oh, you ran to a 73-win team just to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
And so the premium became on winning the championship as opposed to how it gets done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of my spiel. I think that I think that championships play way too big a role in legacy. I'll say that for another day.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I was about to get into how Bill Russell, even though he has the most championships, in that conversation doesn't get the respect that he deserves.
That's interesting.
Winning 11 championships in 13 seasons.
Yeah. I think it's the era. People have just dismissed it because it's the era that he was in. Yeah.
Right.
That's all. But so clearly, I think that I'm gonna disclaimer, because I said this to you when we had this conversation for 40 minutes the other day. Mm-hmm. That I do think there's a lot of emphasis placed on championships when it comes to one's legacy. However, I do feel like there is, in some cases, a reason why that championship is the pinnacle for making you a legend or building your legacy. And I use the example of someone who he's a legend, but there's this asterisk that always kind of goes by certain people because they did not reach that level. Mm-hmm. And that person, I talked about with somebody in football, Dan Marino.
Mm-hmm. Dan Marino, yeah.
It'll always be Dan Marino was an amazing quarterback, but he never won a championship. Mm-hmm. It'll always be that. Even though they had a amazing, that was 72. He had an amazing run.
Yeah.
With the Dolphins.
Definitely.
And it just, when they start talking, even now, when they start talking about legends, football legends, who's the first quarterback that comes to mind?
Now, when they talk about legends?
Legends.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. Why?
Because all the
he got them rings, baby.
Yeah.
He got them rings.
Well,
so it is just to me, truly just a matter of, if you are, I think the thought process is this: if you are that much of a legend, if you are that good of a player, you should be able to carry your team to that level, and you should be able to win it. I even think about in basketball, Dominique.
Well, so I think football, though, is different than basketball. It's a lot. In basketball, I think that is more so a thing because it's less players, it's less variables, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like Dan Marino not winning the Super Bowl isn't solely dependent on him, right?
Well, but both of them are team sports.
No, they're both team sports, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot more that goes into football, right?
Yeah.
Because with basketball, not really, but the same 5 guys are on the court.
For offense and defense.
Offense and defense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can be a great quarterback and have a very poor defense or even poor special teams.
Right.
That can cause you to lose games.
Oh, I know. Don't I know? Don't I know?
I wasn't even going to But
yeah.
And so I think that it's a little different in football.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, somebody like, and you said this the other day, you talked about Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
And even though he went to the finals, he lost to the Bulls.
You ain't got that. I'm just saying, it just means something.
Yeah.
It does. And so I feel like it does affect the legacy. Nobody's saying Charles Barkley wasn't a great player. Nobody's going to argue that Dominique wasn't one of the best to ever do it. However, there's still going to always be that caveat, that conversation is always going to be, when you talk about legacy, it's going to be a LeBron conversation. It's going to be an MJ conversation, because they've shown, and LeBron, Lord help me for even having to say this, LeBron, at some point, I think it's a fair conversation to have with him to be the best, because he did it three with 3 different teams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you didn't even have the same people around you,
right? And
you made it happen. So that is something that is going to always be a quote unquote stain for Dominique.
Right.
It never happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, people are going to always be like, yeah, Dominique was a beast on the court, but that's always going to be there. But he didn't win. But it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yeah, it's real. And so, no, I don't feel like it's the championships played. I feel like they are a big part of what seals your legacy.
Yeah.
And see, this is so backwards for me, even though I believe that is what's true.
Right.
It's because that's what people in the world,
right,
say. But me, I'm always about the individual's performance versus the outcome in the stats.
Right.
And so that's why, it's hard for me to have this conversation, but I know that this is true. Whether I like it or not, this is true. So yes, championships play a big role in legacy.
Okay. Well, so they do, but should they?
I do feel like, it is what it is. As much as I want to be like, Neek was amazing and blah, blah, blah. And
right.
To your point of basketball being different than football, if you're a legend and your legacy is that big, like, I would say the play Jimmy Butler, if we were just basing it on just a player and just their sheer will and not having a championship and just being great and whatever, he hadn't done it long enough, but that performance then does become one that we have to start to talk about, because the man just was willing his team to win for the ones that they won.
Right.
He literally just willed his team. If we're going to talk about it from performance, then we got to put him in the conversation a bit.
Right. Well, and I think so. We're saying GOAT, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning greatest of all time. When we talk about
no, we're
talking about legacy.
Yeah.
But when we're mentioning like LeBron and MJ, or when we're mentioning Marino and Tom
Brady
or Joe Montana,
Elway,
right? Mm-hmm. we're mentioning these players, we're calling them the greatest of all times, but we're using team accomplishments to, you know.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of hypocritical because, again, if we would expect that Dominique would be able to like Jimmy Buckets, just will your team to win to get there in order to be able to say his legacy is sealed.
Right.
Then, I mean, yeah, it's kind of unfair. It's so weird. This is such a weird, like, dynamic way. Like, it's so weird. Yeah.
And one of the things that I said the other day was when we were talking about Dan Marino, and nobody regards Trent Dilfer as being better than Dan Marino, but it was to my point about like the variables. Mm-hmm. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl as a quarterback of, you know, on the team of probably one of the best defenses in history.
Right.
Like that's a variable that Dan Marino like never had.
Right. Yeah, no, they weren't that defense. Yeah.
Right. And so Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Marino doesn't.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, I don't know. It's just, especially at football, it's just so many variables that go into it that I don't think it's fair to say, oh, you know, Tom Brady, we already know who our GOAT is.
And that's exactly who I was about to bring up, because I feel like had he not won, it would have been a still.
Right.
He was good, but as good as we know Peyton Manning was, as on an individual performance level, like we know that's the part that makes it so weird, because we know even if he had not won one, Peyton Manning was amazing.
Right. But
he and Eli Manning won the same amount. But listen, I wouldn't even put them in the same category. I'm sorry.
Right.
I wouldn't.
But you think about it, right? He's our GOAT. I think Peyton Manning is the greatest passer of a football that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, and you agree, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what makes you take him over a Tom Brady who has 9 Super
Bowl
rings, and you know, more rings?
Yeah. You mean as far as why I would call him my GOAT over Tom Brady? It's, to me, that goes back to the individual performance. Mm-hmm. It's what the mechanics, the fundamentals that I see that Peyton Manning brought to the game that weren't even seen on the field as much. You know, those weren't things that were flashy that you would see on the field. It was what was happening up here. Right. That's what made him the GOAT for me. Like Tom Brady is good. It's a bunch of quarterbacks who, Patrick Mahomes, they read defenses quickly. Russell Wilson, they read these defenses amazing and quickly, right? Mm-hmm. But it was something. Tom Brady is not a coach on the field. Peyton Manning was the coach on the field. Yeah. Tom Brady might be a leader on the field. Peyton Manning was a coach on the field. It's just different. So there are some individual variables, individual skill sets that, in my mind, make Peyton Manning the GOAT over a Tom Brady. And so that's why, for me, in that situation, championships didn't matter. However, had he not won one, it would have been the conversation still. I can't make him my GOAT because he didn't even win no Super Bowl.
So that's interesting. You would have said that?
I think it would have been no, because I love Peyton Manning.
Okay.
But I think that there are people who would say that I can't even have him in the conversation about being a GOAT because he didn't win a Super Bowl. But because he did, we can have that conversation.
Okay. Well, so he won 2 Super Bowls.
Yes.
I would say the second Super Bowl wasn't as impressive as
No, it was defense versus offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Broncos had a defense that was beastly.
Yeah. And that last year you could start to see that that injury had taken its toll on him. Yeah, so you guys can tell us who you think is right. Who's
Yeah, we
really
won't
right.
spend 40 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, I'm about to say because
yeah, let's
we
keep
ate up
going.
some time on this. one.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
But yes, let us know who you think is really right. Do championships play too big a role in determining the legacy?
Yeah.
I say yes, they do. Stephanie says no. I'll put up the poll on Twitter. You guys can go to our.
I forgot to show you what to do on IG.
Oh okay. Yes, I forgot to ask you about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
At Field to the Real P1, go and let us know who you think is really right.
Yeah, put the cameras on me. 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 Put the cameras on me.